This is the first video on Chapter 9 for Honors Biology, the continuity of life, cellular reproduction. So it starts off the chapter with 9.1 saying, why do cells divide? 9.1, and it starts off with that first bolded term, cell division or cellular division. And it's a very broad umbrella term, and they first introduced it in this small subsection here. But basically, there's many different ways that a cell can undergo cellular division or cell division, and they're going to talk about all of them in this chapter, and it's just giving you a little overview of what you're going to see. And I'm just going to lay out a little picture for you. If you have a cell here, that's the plasma membrane, or if it's a plant cell, the cell wall. Then you have the nucleus here. All the genetic information of a cell is contained within the nucleus. So we can call this 2N, meaning you're going to get in, I'll get into this much later later in the chapter, but this is just a brief overview of cellular division and stuff and reproduction. If you have 2N, the idea behind cellular division or cell division is that this parent cell gives rise to two new daughter cells. And they would be, just as big, but didn't draw them like that. And their nuclei. And the key theory here is that each nucleus will have 2N, or a full set of genetic information. That's the key idea behind cell division. And so let's just zoom in. Oh, and just before I move on, these are called daughter cells. Whoa, that was weird. Sorry about that. These are called daughter cells. These new offspring here, daughter cells. So let's zoom in and look at a nucleus, or a nuclei of one of these, a 2N nuclei. And I'll just clear this. And we're still working in 9.1. We're just going to look at a zoomed in nuclei, or nucleus. So here's the nucleus, and just keep in mind 2N, and this we're going to look at here. Okay, so right now they're going to talk about cell division transmits hereditary information to each daughter cell. Well, we saw that one cell gave rise to two daughter cells, and each daughter cell had 2N. Well, how does that happen? And what is the genetic information that's passed down? What is 2N? And genetic or hereditary information is passed down through DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid. And honors biology, I'm sure you all know this right now and kind of can know the breakdown of this word. But deoxy, that first little prefix there, is going to mean minus an oxygen, or one less oxygen, something like that. And this ribonucleic part here, referring to the sugar. So ribose or deoxyribose are the sugars in DNA and RNA, so ribonucleic. And then acid, referring to it's acidic. It's an acidic substance. So let's look at the breakdown of DNA. First of all, DNA is contained within chromosomes, and we'll get into much more detail on that later. And I also want to say that this is a brief overview of the structure and function of DNA. When I get to the Chapter 11 videos, and when you watch the Chapter 11 videos, there'll be a much more in-depth view of the structure and function and of DNA and whatnot. This is just a brief overview. So we know that DNA is composed of things called nucleotides. And it's unfortunate that a lot of things within a cell are named very similarly. Nucleotides, nucleus, nucleolus, and stuff like that. But nucleotides are composed of three parts. And I'm sure you are just bored now because we all know this. We've been talking about this all year. But a sugar, a phosphate functional group, and a nitrogenous base molecule. So, and then fuel, just a quick refresher, these nitrogenous bases being A, T, G, and C, adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. So I'm sure you know that very well. But that's what a nucleotide is composed of, and nucleotides compose DNA. So you have these three subsections that compose a nucleotide, and then a string of nucleotides is called a strand of DNA. And DNA is said to have a structure that resembles a double helix. And I'm not gonna try to draw a double helix. Well, you know what? I'll try to draw a double helix. It's quite difficult though. Yeah, it yeah, it looks something like that. Don't I mean it'll be something like that. I'm sure you know what it actually looks like, but that's what it kind of looks like. And you can think of each. I should have drawn it in a different color, each strand, but then these they're connected through these nitrogenous bases here, right? That correspond to each other. A binding with T, adenine binding with thymine, and cytosine bonding with guanine. And these, so if this is an A and this is a T, right here is a hydrogen bond. These are all hydrogen bonds between there. So that's pretty important. And it's not even really a bond, it's more of an attraction. And it can be easily broken by the enzyme DNA helicase, but that's later. That's chapter 12, I think. So now that we know about DNA, we're going to talk about something called a gene. And because this subsection is talking about hereditary information, the key term here is gene. And essentially a gene is a gene. I like to think of it just as a section. Wow, that was not so good spelling. Section of, sometimes it doesn't write like I want it to. Section of DNA, or a selection of nucleotides. Nucleotides, right? So a gene could be this. Circle this. This 1, 2, 3 nucleotide sequence. So it could be A, G, T, something like that, maybe. And that's called a codon, but we'll get into that later, chapter 12 again. But genes are the units of inheritance, and so genes are read and translated and transcribed, and eventually become proteins that proteins that perform functions that'll lead to traits, like physical traits, like your eye color or your skin color or your hair color or your body tone, whatever, traits like that. So that, again, that's chapter 10. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but a gene is the unit of inheritance. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of cells that contain these units of inheritance and these complex molecules and etc. The first one being, well, let's first look at the term differentiate. There you see in under the section cell division is required for growth and development. We see the first bolded term is differentiate. Different, E8, kind of different there. That's how I see it. So it's to become different in simplistic terms. And when you're talking with cells, it's to become more specific or specialized. Become specialized. And I like to think of a little analogy here that I came up with a couple hours ago when I was studying. Let's say you have a baby, a newborn baby. Wow, it's so fat. Why is it so fat? Let me try again. I'm not an artist. Okay, newborn baby. Just out of the hospital. Let's say we have 100 of these. And I think that's analogous to a stem cell. You can disagree with me, but this is my little take on it. This is how I like to see it. And they're analogous to each other. Go back and forth. So this little baby can grow up, growth, and become, let's see, what are some jobs that it could become? It could become maybe a handyman, or a plumber, or a professor, or I don't know, a waiter, and it can specialize itself. It'll be a specialized handyman or a specialized plumber, specialized professor, specialized waiter. It does that job and that job only. And then the stem cell, you can think of it as a little baby. It can specialize to become a liver cell, a muscle cell, I don't know, like a kidney cell, kidney cell. There's tons of different cells it can become, and it specializes, and then there you go. That's its job. It performs those functions. If it becomes a liver cell, it performs the functions that a liver cell would perform, and a muscle cell, same thing. So stem cells are essentially undifferentiated cells, non-specialized. Specialized. Not specialized yet, and they will become specialized later on. And now the book goes into the two other types of cells, two broad umbrella terms for the different types of cells. Other cells capable of dividing, just any cell in your body that does this, really. Parent and daughter. And then we have the permanently differentiated cells like brain neurons and heart muscle cells and whatnot. Those are differentiated and they're not gonna keep going. They're performing the task they're gonna perform for the rest of their cycle, their life cycle. And that's an important topic, but as of now we're done with the first section, done everything up to cell division is required for sexual and asexual reproduction. That'll be in the next video, so be sure to watch that, and hope to finish all of chapter 9 soon.